Hi, I'm Gray and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to figure out if you have what it takes to pass the Berklee audition. The audition is split into 4 parts: your performance of your prepared piece, some ear training, some improvisation, and some sight reading. So let's begin. For your prepared piece, obviously I can't listen to that because I'm just a man talking to you through the computer, but I can test you on all the other parts. Let's talk about ear training. So the first part of ear training is I'm going to clap a rhythm and I want you to repeat that, preferably using your instrument, but you can also clap it back. Make sure you have your instrument ready though, because you are going to need it for this test. Now for this part, the auditioner may or may not count you off, so I'm not going to count you off. So then you'll repeat that rhythm. 1, 2, 3, go. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to play a rhythm and you're going to repeat with me. And then you're going to do it with me. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Now, if you do well on that, you might get another one and it might be a little bit longer or a little bit more complicated, but that's roughly what you'll be dealing with. Okay, let's try a longer one together. This is kind of pushes up against the limit of the lengths you might get. So I'm going to count this off, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to count again, and I want you to do it with me. 1, 2, 3, go. One, 2, 3, go. Okay, so that last one was very long. I would say if you can do the first one, that's already very good. You're probably not going to get anything that hard, but I'd like you to be over-prepared. Okay, let's go on to the next part. I'm going to play some melodies on the guitar, and I want you to repeat them using your instrument. So I'm going to play a melody on the guitar, and then the next time through, I want you to play it with me. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so you can pause for a moment if you need to figure that out, and then you're going to play it with me. 1, 2, 3, go. Now, just like the previous example, how did you do? It's okay if it wasn't perfect. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for a feeling of confidence that we can deal with these challenges and figure stuff out and think on our feet. That's what we're looking for. Now, just like the previous example, if you did well on that, you might get a longer one. In all of these examples will probably be simple diatonic melodies in major or minor, but they may also include something a little bit more bluesy like a pentatonic scale, so keep that in mind. Let's try another example. I'm going to play it, and then I want you to try to play it. You can pause and figure it out. It's okay if it takes you a minute. Really, that's typical. Okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, now you're going to play that. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, how did you do? Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, your turn. Feel free to pause and figure that out. You can ask your auditioner to repeat it. It's ideal if you don't, but it's probably not a big deal if you ask them to repeat it. Okay, let's try one more. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, good. Now, how did you do? If you felt like you could do something roughly similar to what I did, and even if it took you had to pause and think about it for a minute, even if you had to listen to it once or twice, that's kind of roughly within the target that we're looking for. If, however, you heard those examples and you played them back like a machine, that would be a pretty good performance on the audition. Okay, and then for the last part of the ear training, we're going to play some chords and we're going to try to differentiate them. Now, in your audition, the main priority is to be able to differentiate just between major and minor chords, but you may occasionally have an augmented, a diminished, or a suspended chord sprinkled in there. So those are all triads. And if for some reason you do spectacular on that, then you might get some seventh chords, but those really aren't usually part of that audition. That was major. That was minor. That was major. That was minor. That's diminished. That's augmented. Let's try a couple more. Now, if you were making it through the majors and minors, fine, that's great. But you might have some of these in there as well. So let's just try a few more. That was major 7. That was minor 7. That was dominant 7th. Okay? Probably isn't going to touch on 7th chords, and it may not even touch on the augmented and diminished. But again, the more you know about this, the more confident you're going to be. We'll talk about how to do that in a second. Okay, now we're going to do the improvisation. So I'm just going to play a little bit of an accompaniment for you, and I want you to use your instrument to improvise along with me, okay? And I'm not going to tell you the key, so I want you to try to feel for the key with your ear. And remember, it's probably going to be major, minor, or some kind of bluesy pentatonic thing, okay? Let's try one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now it's very, very common to get a blues on this as well because so many people know how to play improv in the blues. So we're going to do one of those as well. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, hopefully you're able to catch onto that key and do a little bit of something with the A pentatonic blues there. Okay, so that's it for the improv. And last but not least, we're going to do some sight reading. So I'm going to put an example down there for you to sight read with your instrument. Now, you can pause the video and you can take about 10 minutes to work on this, which it seems generous, but that's typically what you get when you go to the audition. You get about 10 minutes, maybe 15, to work on that sight reading and warm up a little bit. So you can pause and work on that. Are you ready? Okay. So the thing about sight reading is I ideally don't want to hear you kind of stopping and going back to the beginning. I want to count you off and I want you to keep going like you're in a band. So which means that if I count you off and I play that thing while you're playing it, we should stay lined up. Even if you miss a couple notes, we got to stay lined up, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now how did you do? If you didn't do well, don't worry. We're going to talk about that and more in this video about how you can totally ace the Berklee audition. So let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about who can get into Berklee. So in my experience, most people can get into Berklee if they work really hard and they put in the time, and it will typically take about 2 years of serious practice and preparation. And I say 2 years of serious practice because maybe you've played an instrument on and off for your whole life, but you never really got serious about it. And I do emphasize the 2 years because I've had students that started from total scratch, couldn't play at all, and after 2 years were able to pass the audition. Now the caveat for that being, if you barely get in and you don't have a lot of experience, you're going to get into Berklee and be kind of blown away by some of the people that are there, and that's just kind of comes with it, so be prepared for that. Okay, so to pass the audition, you need to be able to play simple melodies by ear. You need to be able to hear and repeat rhythms like we did in that test. You need to be able to differentiate at least between major and minor chords, and it helps if you can also identify augmented, diminished, sus, and maybe a couple 7th chords, but it's really major and minor, that's the key. You also want to have some proficiency either in sight reading or in improvisation, but preferably in both. Now I say either because it's very common for someone to be weak in at least one of those areas. But if you're strong in both of those areas, that's just going to make the audition go much more smoothly for you, and it's going to increase your chance of getting a scholarship. So if you're an experienced musician, you need to find your weakest spots and work on those to get ready for the audition. You probably know what they are from what we talked about already. In addition to that, you want to be working on your prepared piece at least 30 to 45 to 60 minutes every single day leading up to the audition. That's how you're really going to nail that. If you're a novice or a beginner and you're not as strong, then yeah, you want to work on your prepared piece a lot, maybe even more than what I just said. And you also want to spend a good hour, maybe hour and a half a day trying to drill all of these things to catch up. It's not unreasonable to be practicing 2, 3, 4 hours a day on your way up to this audition. I've had students that started from total scratch and were able to do it in about 2 years, but that's with more than 4 hours per day of practice. Okay, so let's talk about every single piece of the audition from beginning. First, let's talk about the prepared piece. So for the prepared piece, the key here is don't choose something that you think Berklee wants to hear. You know, you might have heard Berklee's a jazz school. Well, don't pick some jazz standard because your teacher said you should play jazz at Berklee. Don't do that. Find something that you can really be good at. That could be rap, that could be rock, whatever it is that's your coolest thing that you can do, you know, the kind of thing that would get you your 1,000,000 views on YouTube, the kind of thing that people would think is really interesting about you, and do that thing. And if there's multiple aspects to your musical self, try to display them both or display all of them. So for example, if you like to sing and play, but then you also like to play solo fingerstyle guitar, try to find a way to do both. You got 3 to 5 minutes, so you can actually split that into 2 smaller pieces or make an arrangement. You can do an original song if that's your strength. So make sure that you're showing everything you've got. Maybe you do death metal by night and classical violin by day. Get both of those in there. It really is going to help. Your prepared piece needs to be strong. It needs to be musical. It needs to make a connection with your audience. So make sure that you record yourself playing your prepared piece at least once a week, probably every day if you're really serious. And also make sure that you go play it for someone. Could be your parents, could be your friends. It actually could just be a bunch of little kids. I think kids are an amazing audience because they kind of simulate the worst possible audience because they don't pay attention to you and they just kind of run around screaming. But they still give you some pressure there that you've got to try to keep their attention. So play your piece in front of others. Post it on YouTube, get some feedback on it. Okay, now let's talk about the ear training. There's 3 parts to the ear training practice, and you're going to approach each of them in a little bit of a different way. One is with the call and response rhythm. Probably the best way to work on that is just to listen to some rhythmically heavy music with some good riffs, and then pause once in a while and try to sing or tap back the rhythms that you're hearing. That shouldn't be too hard. You can also get specialized ear training software to transcribe rhythms. 2 is with the call and response of the melody. Same thing, although, you know, even more rich with material. Just listen to any music, pick anything that kind of grabs your ear. It could be a vocal melody, it could be a guitar fill, it could be an interlude or bridge, it could really be anything. And try to transcribe, which is to figure that out by ear and play it on your instrument. Do that a little bit every day. You know, don't sit down and try to do an epic amount of it. Just do a few minutes every day. That's how you're going to develop that ear that's really flexible and versatile. And that's kind of what's going to show up in your audition. It's how do you do when you're thinking on your feet, because you don't know exactly what's going to happen at your audition. 3 is identifying the chords. Now this tends to be something that a lot of students struggle with, but it's actually probably objectively one of the easier things to work on. So all you need to do, you can use the practice materials I've included in this video, but really all you need to do is listen to some chords on an ear training app. Like there's a great app called Tenuto, and you can actually configure it to only play the chords you're trying to work on, such as major and minor. And then later on you can add augmented, diminished, and so on and so forth. And then what you want to do is listen to each chord. We're going to try a couple examples. But you want to listen to each chord, and then you want to try to sing some of the notes in them. So let's try an example. If you're like most people, that top note is really striking out at you. So hang on to that. Most people can hear the high notes. Now can you hear your way down to the bottom note? Yeah, usually it's going to be a fifth if it's in root position, right? Now see if you can sing in between. Oh, it's a major third. So just by practicing singing your intervals and singing what you hear inside the chord, particularly the top and bottom, you can then try to identify, because if you can hear a fifth between the top and bottom, then you just need to figure out what kind of third it is. It could be a major or minor third. Or so practice with the app Tenuto. It's a great practice. And then the other thing you can do every day, do this. take a chord like this, do, mi, sol, mi, do, and sing its arpeggio out, and then modify that. Do, me, sol, me, do. See, I did that without my instrument. That means I can hear in my inner ear what that chord's pieces sound like. Now I can even do this. Do, re, sol, re, do. Or do, mi, fa, do, fa, sol, fa, do. That's a sus4. And then you can also try that with augmented. Do, mi, sol. Augmented is a major with a sharp fifth. So you go do, mi, sol, si, do, mi, si. Like that. And then a diminished is a minor with a flat fifth. So you can go do, me, sol. And then you can flatten that fifth. Do, me, sol, si. Do, me, se, me, do. And if you can just really practice singing those arpeggios each day, like when you're in the car waiting in line, that'll actually go really far in helping you identify them. The other thing you can do that may be helpful, although not quite as helpful, is you can sing your diatonic arpeggio. So you can just sing, let's start from C, do, mi, sol, mi, do, re, fa, la, fa, re, mi, sol, ti, sol, mi, etc., etc. If you can sing out the arpeggios of the chord, which I'll put in the link below, that will also help you identify, although I think it's more important to be able to directly compare a major and a minor structure. So do, mi, sol versus do, me, sol. What does that sound like? Okay, so now let's talk about that improv. So if you're not a strong improviser, this is for you. If you've got some background improvising, just make sure that you can quickly find the key of anything and major, minor, or blues, and be able to do a little bit of improv in all of those different forms, and I think you'll probably do fine on that. As you know, there's kind of no limit to how good you can improvise, so this advice is more for people who think, oh, maybe I don't know how to improvise at all. So the way you get started with improvising is you put backing tracks up from YouTube, and they should be simple backing tracks that just have 2 or 3 chords and don't have any non-diatonic chords, just all in one key stuff. And then you figure out the key on your instrument, just 1 octave of it, of the scale, and you make sure it's a higher octave. So this is a big mistake that a lot of beginners make when they're trying to learn improvisation, is that if it's an F major, they go, okay, oh, it's an F major. Let me do this whole big giant scale for no reason, you know, and waste everybody's time. Don't do that. All you really need to do is figure out if you can hear this, oh, it's an F major. All you really need to do is get 1 octave of that. If you're a beginner improviser, that's all you really need to do, 1 octave, and then don't necessarily start on the root, but then play that scale up and down, and then just kind of listen for some rhythm. It could be really simple, like da, 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 da. That's pretty easy. Da, 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 da. And then you just kind of shuffle the notes around like... that. You know, you just play a rhythm, a coherent rhythm that kind of matches whatever track that you're playing along with, and you just stick within that 1 octave. And I'll give you one more secret. If it's major or minor, try throwing away the 4th of the major, which is also the flat 6 of the minor. This example is an F, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Get rid of that fa, because that fa can sometimes be what we call an avoid note. It doesn't sound good in every chord, so you just skip it. And for the minor, it's actually kind of the same note, but if it's this would be like in the key of D minor. It would be the same note. Let's say it was in the key of A minor. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. We would get rid of that flat 6. And then we do something like this. So one of the simplest ways you can get started improvising is get your scale down, just an octave scale, and then add like some very simple rhythm to it. And that should get you through the improvisation part. But the key is put backing tracks up every day and jam along. I think you'll find it's a lot of fun. It's one of the most addicting things, actually. And then let's talk about how we can do the sight reading. So if you're a guitar player, like me, then this is especially important too. Basically, if your audition is in a couple weeks, then maybe don't even bother, because it's going to take a little bit of preparation for you to be able to sight read. But what you want to do is get the method books relevant to your instrument. So if you're a guitar player, you want to use the guitar method books. There's a ton of them. There's Hal Leonard, there's Mel Bay, there's a Berklee method book, and those are all written in standard notation. And you want to just start working through those. Now, it's going to be super boring for the first 20 pages. Each of those books, first 10 to 20 pages, it is a slog. But after you get past that, it's actually kind of fun. Sight reading is a lot like playing a video game. You never know what's going to happen. You got to keep up with the beat and make sure that you don't drop one. So it can be a lot of fun. But I'm going to tell you the method that we learned at Berklee to sight read things effectively and minimize our mistakes. So the first thing you want to do, here, let's put this example up here. The first thing you want to do is look at your key signature and make sure that you're playing the right scale. Now, the Berklee Audition is probably going to use C major, G major, or F major, something like that. It's probably not going to use like A flat major, so don't panic. But look at the key signature and determine what key you're going to be reading this in. In this case, the key signature of this example is in G, so there's an F sharp here, which means that every F that shows up is going to actually be an F sharp and not an F. So you have to know that, otherwise every time you pass an F, it's going to be a wrong note. So look at the key signature. The second thing is you look at the time signature. Now on the Audition, it's almost certainly going to be in common time, which is 4 beats. So keep that in mind, but it could possibly be in waltz time. Okay, so it's probably going to be in common time, but you do want to make sure you're taking note of the time signature whenever you sight read. Then you look at the lowest note, which is simply the physically lowest thing on the page, compare that with the highest note, and then you find that on your instruments. So if the lowest note is this G, and the highest note is this G, I guess I could play that here, or I could play that here. And then because it's in the key of G major, I'll play the G major scale between those 2 points. Now I know I can basically reasonably play everything in that example by using only the notes that I just played for you just now, okay? So that's really important. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the rhythm. If it goes something like this, da, 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 da. Now I kind of roughly know the proportion of each note, and then I also know where those notes are going to be, and then I can kind of feel my way through them. So I can start by just kind of playing the notes without rhythm, like if it's... See, there's no rhythm there. I'm just kind of making sure I know where all the notes are. And then the final step is to try to squish all of those things together. So typically in the Berklee Audition, you get about 10 or 15 minutes to work on your sight reading piece. So that's a very generous amount of time. And if you know this method and you apply it, you should be able to read at least a little bit. Of course, if you're a strong sight reader, even better. So there you have it. If you really do awesome on that audition, you're going to maximize your chance of getting your scholarship. So please do your best and work your hardest. If you're going to go to the audition, then I'm wishing you the best of luck. And thanks so much for watching my channel. Bye.